The stars whispered in the night sky, and for the first time Julian believed they were speaking directly to him. On a quiet, moonlit evening, sitting on the edge of his balcony, he let his gaze wander across the universe, searching for something he couldn't name. Life had always been a series of routine days, work, sleep, and barely any spark to ignite his passion. But that night everything was about to change. It started as a dream. Not an ordinary dream, but one so vivid, so real, it felt as though it had come to life. Julian had never been one to believe in the supernatural, but the night he dreamed of her, his world was never the same. She was there, so beautiful, so powerful, dressed in an ethereal gown that shimmered like the night sky. Her skin was a soft silver, glowing faintly in the dark. Her eyes, those eyes, sparkled with an intelligence and mystery far beyond what any human could comprehend. In the dream, she stood before him, her presence like a pull, like gravity drawing him into her. He reached out, trembling as if afraid she might vanish. She spoke, her voice melodic like music blending with the wind. "I have seen you in my visions, Julian. I have been waiting for you." And just like that, Julian woke up. He could still feel her words as if they had been etched into his soul. He had never forgotten the dream, but he couldn't explain it. Not to anyone. Who would believe him? Days passed, but the memory of her haunted him, tugging at him in moments of quiet solitude. Julian tried to shake the thought. He immersed himself in his work, hoping that the busy days would help him forget. But deep down, a part of him longed for the mystery of that dream. He began searching for her, though he didn't know what exactly he was searching for. He went online, looked up myths of star-crossed lovers, ancient tales of extraterrestrial beings, and anything that might explain the dream. But the answers only eluded him. And then it happened. Julian was walking through the park, his mind consumed with thoughts of her, when a strange sensation washed over him. It was as if the air itself had shifted. The very ground beneath his feet seemed to hum with energy. Looking up, he saw something that took his breath away. A glowing light descending slowly from the sky hovered above the park. He could feel the heat of it against his skin, yet it didn't burn. The light expanded, and from within it she emerged, his dream, his angel in the flesh. Her presence was overwhelming. Julian took a step back, unsure whether to approach or run. She landed gracefully on the earth as though she were weightless. Her gown shimmered even more vividly now, with small sparks of light dancing across the fabric. She was just as he remembered, beautiful, otherworldly, and impossible. "Julian," she spoke, and his heart raced. The words from his dream echoed in his mind. He felt a connection to her, one that transcended time and space. "Who are you?" he managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. The alien princess smiled, a soft curve of her lips that made the world seem to stop. She stepped closer, her eyes locked onto his with a gaze so intense it made him feel as though his very soul was being read. "I am Celine, the princess of a distant star system," she said, her voice like the wind, soothing yet full of power. "I've come for you, Julian. You are not just a man. You are the one I've been searching for." Julian's heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing. This couldn't be real, could it? He pinched himself, hoping it was just another dream, but the sensation of her presence was undeniable. "How?" Julian asked, his voice shaky. "How is this possible?" Celine's eyes softened, and she reached out, her fingers brushing against his skin. The touch was electric, and in that moment, Julian knew that nothing in his life would ever be the same. "I've waited for this moment for eons," she said, her gaze deepening with emotion. "The stars have aligned, and I am here, Julian. I have come to take you with me, to a world beyond your wildest imagination. Together we will change the course of the universe." Her words hit him like a wave, overwhelming and beautiful. She had come for him, but what did that mean? What was he supposed to do now? Was he ready to leave everything behind and follow her into the unknown? Questions flooded his mind, but there was only one thing he knew for certain. He couldn't let her go. And so, with a breath that felt like the beginning of an adventure, Julian took her hand. The moment Julian's hand touched Celine's, the world around him seemed to fade. It was as if the very air was alive with energy that coursed through him, shifting and pulling him into something vast, something he couldn't yet comprehend. A rush of emotions washed over him. Fear, awe, excitement, and a deep longing he hadn't known he had until this very moment. Celine's touch, warm and radiant, grounded him. She smiled, her gaze tender yet full of mystery. The stars seemed to flicker in her eyes as if they too recognized the gravity of the moment. Her voice was calm, yet there was an unmistakable urgency in her words. "You are not just a man, Julian," she repeated, this time with more intensity. "You are the key. The galaxy has been waiting for you." Julian blinked, his mind struggling to piece together her words. "The key to what?" Celine's eyes darkened for a brief second, as if she were remembering something painful. But then she straightened and the confidence returned to her gaze. "There is a war, Julian. A war between the stars, and I am fighting to save everything. But I cannot do it alone. I need you." A chill ran down Julian's spine. He had imagined meeting someone extraordinary, but never had he imagined this, being caught up in something so grand, so beyond his understanding. I don't know how I can help you," Julian stammered, his words faltering. "I'm just a regular guy. I don't have any power, no skills. What could I possibly do?" Celine reached out and cupped his face gently, her touch soothing yet firm. "You are more powerful than you realize, Julian. You have a strength within you that transcends anything you can understand right now. That is why I came for you. The fate of worlds is bound to you whether you like it or not." Julian shook his head, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion. "How can that be true? How can a normal person like me be the key to saving a galaxy? I don't even know where to begin." "You will learn," Celine said, her voice full of certainty. "I will teach you. There is much about you that you do not yet know. But together we can unlock it." The ground beneath them seemed to hum as if responding to her words, to her promise. Julian looked at her, his beautiful, glowing alien princess whose presence was both comforting and overwhelming. Her elegance and power were undeniable, and yet there was a vulnerability in her eyes, a longing that mirrored his own. "Why me?" Julian asked, his voice quieter now, more intimate. "Why did you choose me? There must be others who could help you. People who understand. People who are more capable than I am." Celine's expression softened and she took a step back, her gaze never leaving his. "Because, Julian, your soul is ancient. It has crossed the stars before. You and I are bound by fate, by a promise made long ago. The stars themselves have known this day would come. And now it is time for you to remember who you truly are." Her words made no sense, and yet, in the depths of his heart, Julian felt an unspoken truth that he couldn't deny. There was something inside him, a flicker of recognition of something long forgotten, that stirred in response to her words. But how could that be? How could this alien princess who spoke of ancient promises and cosmic destinies know so much about him? The questions burned inside him, but Celine did not wait for him to ask more. With a graceful motion she turned, extending her hand once again. The world around them began to shift, to shimmer, as if the very atmosphere was changing in response to her presence. "Come with me," Celine said softly. "I will show you the stars, Julian. I will show you your true power. Together we can stand against the darkness that threatens everything we know." Julian hesitated for a moment, his mind racing. Was he really ready for this? Was he ready to step into the unknown, to leave behind the life he had known for something unimaginable? But as his gaze met hers, as he saw the unwavering hope in her eyes, something inside him stirred, something he had never felt before. This wasn't just a chance encounter. This was destiny, and if destiny had chosen him to stand by her side to help her save the galaxy, how could he refuse? Without a word, he placed his hand in hers, and in that moment he felt it. Felt the connection between them, stronger than any force he had ever known. It was as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for them to move forward together, and so they did. The stars above them seemed to shimmer even brighter as Celine led him toward the unknown, her every step carrying them closer to a future he could not yet understand, but one that he was certain would change him forever. The journey that awaited Julian was unlike anything he had ever imagined. As he stood beside Celine, her hand warm and steady in his, he felt the pull of something greater, something powerful, and beyond his comprehension. The world they stood on, the park they had once walked through, began to fade. The sky overhead turned from the deep blue of Earth to a swirling canvas of stars and galaxies. It felt as if the very fabric of space itself was bending around them, folding to some unknown purpose. Celine led him with quiet assurance. "Hold on to me, Julian," she whispered, her voice like the hum of the universe. The journey is not yet complete. Julian glanced around, unsure of what to expect. One moment he had been in the park, the next they were standing in a place where time seemed to slow, where the stars themselves danced before him. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Where are we going?" he asked, though part of him already felt he knew. "To a place where you can learn," Selena replied, her eyes glowing with determination. "A place where we can unlock the power within you." The very air around them pulsed with energy, and with a sudden shift, they were no longer standing on Earth. Julian felt his stomach drop as if he were falling, but there was no fear. Instead, there was a strange comfort, a knowing that whatever was happening, he was meant for it. In the blink of an eye, they landed, softly, without sound or jolt. Julian blinked as his feet touched the surface of what appeared to be another world. The ground beneath him was unlike anything he had seen before, smooth and iridescent, a blend of silver and deep blues like the surface of a calm ocean at midnight. "This is my home," Celine said softly, sweeping her hand to encompass the magnificent landscape before them. Towering crystalline structures rose high above them, casting long shadows in the light of twin moons. The sky was alive with shifting colors like a constant aurora stretching across the horizon. Julian could hardly believe his eyes. This was no ordinary world. It was far beyond anything he could have dreamed. The air was thick with energy, and he could feel it vibrating through his very skin, making him feel as though he could stretch beyond his own limits. "I don't understand," Julian murmured, his voice low in awe. "This place. It's beautiful. But why am I here?" Celine turned to him, her face solemn, yet filled with a depth of emotion that Julian couldn't quite grasp. "You were chosen, Julian. Not just for your strength, but for your heart. You carry a light within you, one that has been dormant for centuries. The galaxy is in chaos, and we need that light to lead us out of the darkness." Her words were heavy, laden with meaning, and Julian felt a stirring deep inside him. Was he truly capable of something so grand? Could he really be the one to bring change to a universe teetering on the edge of destruction? Celine extended her hand toward a shimmering archway in the distance, a portal that seemed to pulse with light. "Come with me," she said, her voice now carrying a sense of urgency. "There is much for you to learn. We don't have time to waste." Julian hesitated, his mind racing. How could he leave everything behind? He had a life on Earth, his job, his friends, everything he knew. But as his gaze met Celine's, he saw something he couldn't ignore, a quiet, burning hope. She was asking him to trust her, to take a leap into the unknown, and deep down, Julian knew he had to follow. With a single, determined step, he walked forward and took Celine's hand again. Together, they passed through the archway. As they entered the portal, Julian felt his body being pulled in every direction. It was unlike anything he had experienced. Time seemed to stretch and compress at once, and the very fabric of reality seemed to fold around him. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. They were in another place now. Julian could feel it before he even looked around, a space that existed outside of time itself. It was vast yet comforting, filled with a gentle glow. Floating islands drifted in the air, connected by bridges of light. In the center of the space stood a massive crystalline structure, pulsing with energy. It was both breathtaking and intimidating. "This is where your training will begin," Selene said, her voice echoing slightly in the vastness of the place. "Here you will learn who you truly are. You will discover the power within you." Julian swallowed hard. The weight of her words pressed down on him. He had come here not just for adventure, but for something greater, something he wasn't sure he was ready for. Could he rise to the challenge? Could he embrace this destiny that had been thrust upon him? But as he looked at Celine, her gaze unwavering, filled with trust, he knew one thing. He was no longer just Julian. He was part of something bigger, a galaxy that needed saving, and somehow he had been chosen to play a part in it. "I'm ready," he said, the words coming out with more conviction than he had expected. His journey had just begun, and he wasn't going to turn back. The training began in earnest. Day after day, Julian immersed himself in a world that was both alien and familiar. The floating islands, suspended in the ether, became his sanctuary, each one holding new lessons, new challenges, each designed to push him beyond his limits. Celine was always by his side, guiding him with patience, teaching him to harness the power within. But it wasn't just the physical training that Julian found himself struggling with. It was the inner turmoil, the doubts that gnawed at his soul. Each lesson revealed something new about himself, something he couldn't quite understand. His dreams of a peaceful life on Earth, of quiet evenings and simple days, felt like distant echoes, fading with each passing hour. Celine had said that he was the key. She had said that the galaxy depended on him, and though his heart longed for answers, for some understanding of why all this had been thrust upon him, the weight of it was suffocating. One afternoon, as the twin moons of her world began to rise, Julian sat by the edge of a crystal-clear lake, his thoughts scattered. The water reflected the shimmering light from the sky, and for a moment everything felt peaceful, as if time itself had stopped. Celine appeared beside him, her presence gentle, as if she knew the storm brewing inside him. She sat down next to him, her gaze distant yet thoughtful. "Tell me, Julian," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of years. "What troubles you?" He turned to her, feeling the vulnerability he had tried to hide. "I don't understand, Celine. Why me? Why did you come for me? I'm just a man from Earth. I don't have the power, the knowledge to be the one to save anything, let alone a galaxy." Selena looked at him with those eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of countless worlds. "You are more than you realize. You were not chosen because of your power, Julian. You were chosen because of your heart." "My heart?" he asked, confused. "Your heart is what makes you unique. It is the light in you, the one that hasn't yet been tainted by the darkness that spreads across the galaxy. There are many powerful beings in this universe, Julian, but few possess the strength of compassion, the willingness to sacrifice for others. That is why you were chosen." Julian's heart clenched at her words. Compassion? Was that truly all he had to offer? He had never thought of himself as special, just a man with ordinary dreams, ordinary hopes, and now he was caught up in something so much bigger than he could ever have imagined. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Celine reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder, her touch steady and reassuring. "Strength is not always about power, Julian. It is about resilience, the courage to face what is difficult, and the willingness to stand even when you are afraid. You have that within you. I've seen it." For a long moment they sat in silence, the sounds of the distant stars filling the air. Julian took a deep breath, the weight of Celine's words settling into his heart. Perhaps he didn't need to understand everything all at once. Perhaps the journey wasn't about having all the answers. Perhaps it was simply about taking the next step, even when the path ahead seemed impossible. Celine stood, her gaze lifting to the sky. The stars shimmered, casting their light over the landscape, and for the first time Julian understood. There was something far greater at play here. The galaxy was not just a collection of stars and planets. It was alive, interconnected, and it had chosen him. "The darkness that threatens this universe is not a simple force," Celine said, her voice filled with the weight of history. "It is an entity, a being so ancient, so powerful that it has consumed worlds, civilizations, and entire star systems. Its hunger is unrelenting, and it will stop at nothing until all is devoured." Julian's stomach twisted. "How can we stop something like that?" Celine's expression hardened. "That is what you must learn, Julian. The key to defeating this darkness lies within you, within your ability to connect with the very fabric of the universe itself. You are the beacon, the one who will guide the galaxy back from the edge of destruction. But to do that, you must first believe in yourself." Julian nodded, his heart still heavy with doubt, but now there was something else in him, an ember of determination that hadn't been there before. He wasn't just learning to control power. He was learning to believe that he could make a difference. "I'll try," he said, his voice filled with a quiet resolve. "I'll do whatever it takes." Celine's eyes softened and she smiled. "That's all I ask, Julian. You don't need to have all the answers right now. Just take each step as it comes, and when the time is right, you will know what to do." And so Julian continued his training, each day a step closer to understanding the power that lay dormant within him. But it wasn't just the physical trials that would test him. It was the inner journey, the battle to overcome his own doubts, fears, and insecurities, and through it all, Celine remained by his side, a guiding light in the darkness. He had no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain: he would never be the same again. The days turned into weeks, and Julian's training intensified. Each lesson, Each trial pushed him further into a realm of understanding and power that he could hardly comprehend. But it wasn't just the external challenges that were changing him. Something inside him was shifting, evolving. The first time he truly felt it was during a meditation session on one of the floating islands. Celine had asked him to close his eyes and reach deep within himself, to search for something buried inside. At first, Julian had struggled. He was just a man, an ordinary man who had never known anything beyond his simple life on Earth. But then, a flicker of light surged through him. The energy was different, familiar, yet strange. It resonated deep within his chest, in his very soul. And suddenly Julian understood. It wasn't about power. It wasn't about the grand destiny Celine had spoken of. It was about connection. Connection to the universe. To the stars, to everything around him. For the first time, Julian felt the depth of the universe in his veins, felt the pulse of the galaxies beating through him. It was overwhelming yet beautiful, like a song sung by the cosmos itself. He opened his eyes, gasping for breath. Celine stood before him, watching quietly, her gaze gentle. "You found it," she said softly. "The heart of the universe. You are connected to it now." Julian swallowed hard, his mind racing with the implications. "I don't know what just happened," he admitted, still trembling from the experience. "You will understand in time," Celine replied, her voice calm and sure. "This connection, it is the key to everything. You are the bridge between Earth and the stars, between the past and the future. This power within you is what will allow you to fight the darkness." The word darkness echoed in his mind. The same darkness she had spoken of before, an entity that consumed worlds, that spread fear and despair across the galaxy. But now Julian wasn't afraid. He felt something rise within him, something he couldn't name, but something he knew would fight back against that darkness. The next few days passed in a blur of training. Julian learned to focus the energy within him, harnessing it in ways he had never thought possible. He could feel the currents of the universe now, like invisible threads weaving through the fabric of existence. With Celine's guidance, he learned to manipulate the energy, shaping it, guiding it with his mind. He wasn't the same man who had landed on this world weeks ago. He was becoming something new, something greater. But even as he grew stronger, Julian couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the back of his mind, the feeling that there was something more he needed to understand, something that eluded him. One night, as he stood on the edge of a floating island, gazing out at the stars, Celine joined him. Her presence was always calming, but tonight, there was an unspoken tension in the air. "Julian," she said, her voice soft but filled with an intensity that drew his attention. "There is something you need to know. Something I haven't told you." He turned to her, his heart quickening. "What is it?" Celine's gaze dropped to the ground for a moment before she looked back up at him. Her eyes filled with something he couldn't quite place. "I didn't come to you just because of your power. There is more to it. Something that I have been waiting for." "More?" Julian echoed, confused. "The darkness that threatens us is not just an enemy," she said, her voice growing quieter. "It's a force that seeks to destroy everything, but it's also tied to me. It knows me. It has known me for millennia. And for reasons I don't fully understand, it has chosen you to be the one who can stop it." Julian's mind reeled. "What do you mean it knows you?" Celine hesitated, and for a moment, Julian saw the weight of centuries in her eyes, an age-old burden she had carried alone. "Before I came to this world, before I became the princess you see now, I was once a part of something else, something that the darkness destroyed. I was a protector, one of many who guarded the balance of the universe. But the darkness came and it took everything." Her voice faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "I was the last one left, the last one standing. And the darkness, it knew me, it wanted me. It still does." Julian's heart ached for her, for the pain she had carried all this time. But there was more to this story, something even deeper that he couldn't yet understand. "And now it's come for us both," Julian said quietly, piecing the fragments of her words together. "Yes," Celine whispered, "and that is why you were chosen. You are not just the key to saving the galaxy. You are the key to stopping the darkness from destroying me, from taking what's left of the light in this universe." Julian's thoughts raced. He had known that his connection with Celine was special, but now it felt like they were bound by something even greater than destiny. She wasn't just asking for his help, she was asking him to save her. "I don't know if I can do this," Julian admitted. His voice strained. "You can," she said, her voice firm but filled with a quiet strength. "Because you have already begun. The darkness knows you now, but what it doesn't know is that you will never give up. That is why you will win." Her words, though filled with gravity, carried hope. And Julian, though uncertain of everything that lay ahead, knew one thing. He would never back down. For Celine, for the galaxy, and for the future that still had a chance. The weight of Celine's revelation lingered in Julian's mind like a constant hum. It wasn't just a matter of saving the galaxy anymore. It was about her, the princess he had come to care for more deeply than he could understand. She wasn't just a stranger from the stars. She was the last of her kind, the last guardian of a lost world. And the darkness that had torn apart her past was now coming for both of them. As the days wore on, Julian's training intensified. It was no longer just about learning to wield the power within him. It was about preparing for a battle that had already begun. The darkness was drawing closer, its shadow looming over every corner of the universe. A force so ancient, so merciless that it had already begun to spread its tendrils across the galaxies. The final lesson came on a day that Julian would never forget. Celine had told him they would need to go to the heart of the darkness itself to defeat it. They would have to face it head-on, inside its very lair, to break its hold on the universe once and for all. But Julian couldn't shake the fear that gnawed at him. He wasn't ready. He wasn't strong enough. The darkness was too powerful, too ancient. And Celine, his beautiful, enigmatic princess, was caught in the middle of it all. He couldn't bear the thought of losing her. He had seen her so many times, strong and determined, guiding him through the lessons. But even now, with everything they had learned, Julian saw the cracks in her resolve. Beneath her strength, there was an undeniable weariness. She was carrying a burden, one that had lasted centuries, and no matter how much Julian had trained, he couldn't help but feel the weight of that burden on her shoulders. It was in the quiet moments that Julian felt the true depth of their connection. They would sit together in silence, looking at the stars, sharing only the understanding between them. There were no words needed, just the shared promise that they would face whatever came next together. But as the time to face the darkness grew nearer, Julian felt the weight of their impending mission pressing on him. He looked at Celine one evening, the twin moons casting a soft glow on her face, and the question finally slipped from his lips. "Celine, what if we fail?" he asked, his voice a mixture of fear and hope. She turned to him, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then with a soft sigh, she reached for his hand, her fingers warm against his skin. "We will not fail, Julian," she said, her voice steady, but there was an edge to it now. "Not as long as we stand together." "I don't want to lose you," Julian admitted, the truth raw in his chest. "You won't," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "Not if you trust in yourself. You have always had the strength to fight, Julian. What you needed was to see it. Now that you do, you are ready." Julian nodded, but even as he stood there holding her hand, a part of him still couldn't shake the fear. The darkness was not just a force of destruction. It was something far worse. It was a presence that fed on fear, on doubt, on weakness. It was a living shadow creeping into the hearts of those who stood against it, poisoning them with its endless hunger. But Julian could feel it now, the power within him. The connection to the stars, to the universe, to everything that had ever existed. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was something more. He was the light that would stand against the darkness. And so, with Celine by his side, he took his first steps into the unknown. The moment they set foot on the battlefield, Julian felt it. The air was thick with tension, charged with an energy that he could almost taste. It was as though the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for the first move to be made. The ground beneath them trembled, and Julian looked around, his heart racing. The stars above had dimmed, their light barely breaking through the clouds of swirling darkness that had gathered. Celine stood tall beside him, her expression fierce and unyielding. "We are ready, Julian," she said, her voice calm but full of fire. "This is the moment we've been training for. The darkness will not have us." But even as she spoke, Julian could feel the pull of the darkness, a whisper in his mind, threatening to drown him in its despair. It wasn't just physical strength they would need. It was mental resilience, emotional fortitude. The darkness fed on fear and doubt, and if they were to win, they would have to face those fears head-on. Together they stepped forward, hand in hand, and the battle began. The first wave came with the force of 1,000 storms. Shadowy figures rose from the ground, twisting and writhing like creatures born from the very depths of nightmare. Julian could feel the fear building within him, could feel the darkness trying to take hold of his mind. But he had learned to resist. He had learned that his strength came from within, from his heart, from his connection to everything that was good in the universe. With a wave of his hand, the energy inside him surged and a beam of light shot out, cutting through the darkness like a blade. The creatures faltered, retreating before the power he had unleashed. But this was just the beginning. Selene stood beside him, her own energy swirling around her like a storm. Together they were unstoppable. The darkness may have been ancient, but it had never encountered a force like theirs. With each step, each strike, they pushed back the shadows, driving them into the corners of the battlefield. But Julian knew this was only the first wave. The true battle was yet to come, and as he looked at Selene, standing strong and unwavering by his side, he knew that together they would face whatever the darkness had in store. The clash of light and shadow reverberated through the very air, each wave of darkness pushing against Julian and Selene's combined strength. The field before them, once calm and serene, had turned into a battleground, a chaotic swirl of swirling shadows and brilliant bursts of energy. The darkness, while fierce, was not invincible. Each strike of light from Julian seemed to cut deeper into the creatures that rose from the ground, their forms dissolving into mist before they could do any more damage. Yet it was clear that these were only the messengers of something far greater. In the distance, Julian could see it, a towering, monstrous figure, an entity that seemed to loom over the battlefield like an eclipse, blotting out the stars themselves. The ground trembled beneath the weight of its presence, and the very air seemed to grow heavier as the creature stepped forward. "That's it," Julian said, his voice low, filled with both fear and determination. "That's the darkness, isn't it?" Selene nodded, her eyes steely, her grip on his hand tightening. "It is the heart of it all. That is the entity that has been consuming worlds. The one who has been hunting me, hunting us." Julian's heart pounded in his chest. There was something deeply terrifying about the way it moved, an unnatural shifting presence that seemed to distort the very fabric of reality around it. Yet, despite the fear that threatened to overwhelm him, he stood firm, his resolve solidifying. He had already come too far to back down now. The creature was the embodiment of darkness, its form fluid, ever-changing, a mass of writhing shadows and jagged edges. It was as if the creature itself was an endless void, seeking only to consume all that stood in its way. The very air around it felt colder, as if hope itself was being drained from the battlefield. "We have to stop it," Julian said, his voice filled with a quiet determination. Selene turned to him, her eyes soft yet filled with an unwavering strength. "We will," she replied. "But this battle requires more than strength. It requires understanding. The darkness is not just a force, it's a reflection of fear, of every negative thought and doubt that exists. And it feeds on those emotions." Julian took a deep breath, understanding dawning on him. The battle wasn't just against a physical enemy. It was a battle of the mind, of the heart. The darkness would try to break them, to turn them against each other, to make them question their very purpose. He looked at Selene, his gaze steady. "We have to stand together no matter what." Selene nodded, and together they stepped forward, the ground beneath them vibrating with the power of the entity before them. The darkness, sensing their unity, seemed to surge forward, its form expanding, casting shadows that reached for the stars. Julian felt it then, the weight of everything that had led him here. The dreams, the training, the connection to the universe, it was all leading to this moment. He wasn't just fighting for the galaxy. He was fighting for everything good in the universe, the light, the love, the bonds that held everything together. The darkness reached out for them, tendrils of shadow spiraling toward them with the intent to crush. But Julian was ready. His hands shook with the intensity of the energy flowing through him, but he refused to let it overwhelm him. With a deep breath, he focused on the light within him, the warmth of the stars, the connections to everything that mattered. "Stay with me," Selene said, her voice steady as she raised her hand toward the sky. "We are one now, Julian. The universe is with us." With a single unspoken command, Julian unleashed the full force of the energy within him. A beam of light so bright it seemed to split the very fabric of the universe. It shot toward the dark entity, the force of it pushing back the darkness, causing the creature to screech in agony. But the darkness was relentless. It surged forward again, more powerful than before, determined to swallow them whole. "Focus," Celine shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "The light is within you, Julian. It always has been. You are the key." The words echoed in his mind, and Julian realized then that the power wasn't just in the energy. It was in his belief, in his love for everything that was good. He had to trust in himself, in his heart. He had to believe that he was enough. With a final, desperate cry, Julian gathered all the energy he could muster, not just from within, but from the very universe around him. The stars, the planets, the light of 1,000,000 worlds flowed through him, and in that moment, he knew this was the final push. The light exploded from him, a beam so bright it consumed everything in its path, engulfing the creature in a flood of pure energy. The darkness shrieked, its form writhing as the light cut through it, breaking it apart piece by piece. For a moment it seemed like the universe itself had held its breath. The battle was over. The entity that had brought so much fear, so much destruction, was no more. The stars above began to shine once again, their light steady and bright. Julian dropped to his knees, exhausted but filled with a sense of peace he had never known. The air around them was still, the oppressive weight of the darkness finally gone. Celine knelt beside him, her eyes filled with pride and relief. "You did it, Julian. We did it." Julian smiled, his heart full, though he was still catching his breath. "We did it," he echoed. Together they stood, looking at the stars above them, knowing that their fight was over, that the darkness had been vanquished. But even more than that, Julian knew that he had found something far greater than victory. He had found love, trust, and a place in the universe that was all his own. And as he turned to Celine, he saw her smile, the smile of the princess who had led him through the darkness and into the light. The journey had changed them both, but it had also brought them closer than they had ever imagined. And with her by his side, Julian knew that there was no challenge they couldn't face together. The galaxy had been saved, but more importantly, they had found each other. And that, Julian thought, was the greatest victory of all.